now we're leaving the Oriental Hotel and we are heading towards through the Fort District, the commercial hub of Colombo, which I understand now, until about 15 years ago, we wouldn't be allowed to take pictures in, let alone film video. About 50 years ago started the civil war between the Sinhalese and the Tamil. And while I did ask a few questions of my guide, she's attempting to be as non-committal as possible as to who the good guys and bad guys were. And to be honest, it's war. There really are no good guys to speak of necessarily. There was, in fact, a bombing here in Colombo in the early 70s that really ignited the tinderbox. And as a result, there are a couple of blocks here that were shut down completely for decades. One couldn't be here, let alone take pictures for the longest time. And you'd be questioned if you were here at the wrong time of day, to say the least. So, there was a peace treaty signed in 2009, and now we are able to come here as tourists. And they are trying to bring everything back to its former glory. But it's going to take time. They've got a long way to go. I mean, 30 years of war exacts a terrible toll. Behind us is the Cargill's, the original department store. It was built here over a century ago, but this is one that's been restored. It was the first department store in Southern Asia. Behind it, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is their one World Trade Center. Every stone of these banks was brought in from Europe. Only the labor involved was Sri Lankan. And not every building has been restored yet. This one has obviously not, and it's got a long way to go. Most of the others along this way, and I forget which street this is, have been restored. But the job is by no means finished. At the end of this particular street is the presidential residence, which is a bit of a misnomer because he doesn't actually live here. This is basically the government meeting place more than anything else. Our guide tells us that the street behind it, leading up to it, looked like a typical Sri Lankan street back in the day, with the trees as we see them now, mangoes, guavas, banyans, the whole 9 yards. But of course now no one's able to go down there, it's barred off, there are guards there, the whole thing. Over in the corner here is the post office, which was basically where people would come in once they got off their ship. Send and receive messages and everything like that. The Cargill's department store isn't what it used to be. Founded back in 1906, it is now nothing more than a grocery store. But once upon a time, it was not unlike Harrods or Marshall Field's or Macy's, and yet it was something else even before that. Before that, it was a warehouse, and before that, it was the residence of a Dutch governor, and the statue of Minerva and that plaque beneath her is taken from that very building, which dates to 1694. While she's been moved, she hasn't moved from this place in those 4 centuries. Here on Chatham Street, Colombo boasts a rather unique architectural thing. The clock tower behind us was originally built as a lighthouse. Back in the 1880s, Chatham Street was a canal, and behind it was essentially harbor. It's been filled in since, so there's more Colombo beyond. So there's no need for it to function as a lighthouse. But unfortunately, it no longer works as a clock either. You'll notice that it records the time as noon. It's barely after 10 o'clock at this point. Now here at the end of Chatham Street is the old Dutch hospital from pre-British days, obviously. This was specifically for the Dutch. No indigenous Sinhalese were treated here. The surgeon's quarters were on the second floor. It's now a spa. And the place that's now a bar was a dispensary. They would basically sell opium and opium derivatives from there. And now they distribute a different sort of medication, if you will. Meanwhile, the second courtyard has also been restored and basically turned into a series of restaurants on either side. It's nice to see that commercialism can be used to preserve history, even as some might decry it for overrunning it. Best to give it some use. Considering that our guide said that if we were to shop in the Peta district, it would be an experience that would require patience, which I don't generally have when I shop. Probably just as well to stop at the souvenir shop back here. I may pay a little bit more for what I bought. The fact that I only paid $13 for spices and teas and all of that still seems like an excellent deal. I was mildly tempted by the incense sticks, but as I'm not one to buy into that whole chakra thing, it probably would have done me no good. So that's pretty much about it. I think we're done with this particular shore excursion. I just get to find out how far I've walked once I get back and turn off the recording function on my Strava. So we'll see what we've got here, and maybe I'll go out, maybe I won't, because I think I've accomplished everything I set out to around here. So anyway, thanks for paying attention to the little things that I've been able to say. It's been a little bit more tricky than usual since there's been a voice in my ear the whole time, and it makes it very hard to relate everything that I hear right back. But there you are. We're off to our next stop in Cochin, and actually I'm not going to be spending much time there, but I'll go into that when we get there. So till later, honey. Take care. Wish me luck. I'm gonna need it.